My girlfriend said, I cheated, but only because you're emotionally distant. I looked at her for a long moment and said, got it. And with that, I uploaded the proof she'd foolishly left synced on our shared iCloud. Within 24 hours, the dream job she'd been gloating about was rescinded. I'm a 28-year-old man, a software engineer by profession. I work with data, patterns, logic, things that make sense, things that follow a structure. My life runs on systems, not because I'm a robot, but because order gives me peace. I don't speak much when emotions run high. I don't lash out or break things. I internalize, process, and act with deliberation. My girlfriend, Kimberly, who's 27, used to say that was what she loved most about me. She called it my calm center. To her, it was my anchor in a chaotic world. I suppose calm can start to look like apathy when you're searching for excuses. Last night, she sat me down on our navy blue sectional, the one we spent weeks agonizing over, testing fabrics, swatches, and configurations. It was the same couch where we'd spent quiet nights binge-watching documentaries, planning vacations, sharing meals. She sat with her shoulders hunched, eyes cast down at the floor. I need to tell you something, she began, her voice trembling slightly with that signature quiver she used when she was trying to control a narrative. I stayed silent. She always did fill silences, eventually. I slept with someone. Her voice cracked. The words landed with the blunt force of a hammer, splintering the quiet. I didn't move. I didn't ask who. I didn't shout. I just watched her, waiting for her to tell me more. Her eyes shimmered with tears, but it wasn't grief I saw there. It was defense, a wall of rationalization building up even before she finished the confession. It was a mistake, a massive one, but Andrew, you've been so distant, so closed off, it's like living with a ghost. I needed to feel something. I cheated, but only because you're emotionally distant. Something shifted inside me in that moment. Pain, yes, like a slow and deliberate squeeze inside my chest. But layered over it was this piercing clarity. 1,000 small suspicions, little red flags I had ignored, moments that felt off, but I had dismissed, suddenly all of them aligned with sharp, damning coherence. Late nights with the girls that didn't add up. The frequent mentions of a close colleague at her marketing firm, always with an odd smile. The overnight yoga retreat that had no itinerary and no social media trail. The dots connected in an instant. I could feel her eyes scanning my face, searching for an explosion. She was bracing for yelling, for a slammed door, something dramatic that would make this an argument, something she could later describe as a fight. But I denied her the scene she craved. A dramatic argument would have made her the victim of mutual dysfunction, not the architect of betrayal. So I stood up. Got it, I said simply. The confusion that flickered across her face was almost funny. Got it? That's all you're going to say? I nodded. I've received the data. The hypothesis is confirmed. Without another word, I walked to our bedroom and began packing. My work laptop, 3 changes of clothes, deodorant, toothpaste, a razor. 10 minutes. She followed, her voice growing more shrill with every step. This is exactly what I mean. You're shutting down. You're supposed to fight for me. For us. I paused with my hand on the doorknob, turned, and looked directly at her. There is no us, I said, calmly. There's you and what you did. And there's me, leaving. That night, I crashed on my friend Paul's couch. I didn't sleep. My body lay still while my mind spiraled through loops of memory, dissection, and disbelief. Her words echoed relentlessly. I cheated, but only because you're emotionally distant. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd tried to bury the knife in my chest and then blame me for how she'd twisted it. At around 3 a.m., unable to stare at the ceiling any longer, I opened my laptop. I wanted to get started on detangling our lives, our finances, our accounts, our cloud storage. The shared iCloud was something I had set up long ago, extra storage mostly for automatic photo backups, a practical tool. Kimberly was adept at curating her life on social media, but technical settings weren't her forte. She must have forgotten it was still linked. When I clicked into the Photos app, a folder popped up. It was called Fun. Not encrypted, not hidden, just sitting there like a smirking confession. I opened it. Inside were over 30 photos and a few short videos. Kimberly, grinning ear to ear, with a man I recognized instantly. Steven, her coworker, the one she'd referred to as practically a brother. The photos were dated 2 weeks ago, the same weekend she was supposed to be at a company retreat. There they were, laughing at a bar, his arm around her waist in a park, champagne in their hands in what looked like a hotel room. In the final video, They clinked glasses while she waved a document at the camera. To new beginnings, Steven slurred. Kimberly giggled, holding up her offer letter. And to jobs that are finally worth it. She kissed the paper. Her dream job, head of community outreach at a massive, squeaky clean tech company that branded itself on wholesome family values. 5 interview rounds, countless strategy talks. She had spoken so passionately about their corporate ethics, how this role would finally let her do something meaningful. And yet there she was, toasting her new life on the scorched remains of our relationship. I downloaded everything, every photo, every second of video, and encrypted it onto a local folder I named Consequences. Then I logged out. She said I was emotionally distant. Let her see what emotional precision looks like. The next morning, I dressed sharply, navy blazer, crisp shirt, polished shoes. I wasn't heading to work, I was preparing for closure. Kimberly's new company had sent a congratulatory post on LinkedIn the day she received the offer. I noted the HR contact she'd tagged in her caption. A quick search gave me everything I needed: their email, their press contact, even their workplace conduct policy posted publicly on their site. They boasted zero-tolerance clauses for ethics violations, including conflicts of interest, dishonesty in the hiring process, and reputational damage. I wasn't spiteful, I was methodical. The email I composed was clinical, courteous, and detailed. No slurs, no rage. Just timelines, dates, attachments. I included 3 photos, just enough to show clear evidence of a relationship between Kimberly and Steven. I made no accusations. I simply noted that the events depicted took place during the hiring process and involved an employee at the company. I stated that I was sharing this information for transparency, as it pertained to the integrity of their process and the representation of their brand. Then I hit send. No second guessing, no heart-pounding regret. 3 hours later, I received an automatic response from their HR system thanking me for my submission. By evening, Kimberly called. I didn't answer. She called again, and again. Eventually, I read the texts as they flooded in. They started with confusion. Did you send something to my job? And then dissolved into panic. By midnight, the last one read, they've frozen my offer. I don't know what you did, but please, we need to talk. We didn't. Over the next week, friends started reaching out. Some mutuals, some hers. Most were confused. A few were angry on her behalf. You didn't need to go nuclear, one said. This isn't justice, it's revenge. But what they didn't understand was that I hadn't burned her career out of anger. I simply removed the cushion she thought would catch her fall. Actions have consequences. She built a new life on dishonesty, and I removed my silence from its foundation. Eventually, the final confirmation came. Her offer was officially rescinded. The company cited discrepancies in the hiring process and concerns over recent revelations. The statement was vague, professional, everything she hadn't been. I didn't rejoice. I didn't throw a party or post cryptic memes. I just moved on, slowly, quietly, like I always do. You see, I may be emotionally reserved, but that doesn't mean I feel nothing. It means I don't perform my pain for others. I sit with it, I study it, and when I act, I don't do it to be seen. I do it to restore order. Kimberly thought my silence meant she had won, that I wouldn't care enough to respond. But the truth is, silence doesn't mean apathy. Sometimes it means calculation. Sometimes it means letting the full weight of someone's choices collapse on their own. I'm not a monster. I didn't ruin her life. I just stopped protecting the version of it she built on lies. And I'll be fine. I always am. Paul noticed the change before I did. Maybe it was the way I stopped checking my phone constantly, or how I no longer flinched every time a notification came through. Maybe it was how I stopped talking about her altogether, not from repression but because there was nothing left to say. There was no unresolved thread, no lingering ambiguity. I had lived through the storm, cataloged the damage, and rebuilt from the ground up. The foundation of my life was now my own. My schedule was my own. My peace was uninterrupted, and in that stillness, I started noticing things. How coffee tastes better when no one is criticizing your routine, how silence in a home isn't emptiness but potential. I began noticing the simple pleasures. Early mornings with clear skies, the satisfying click of a finished line of code, the weight of a basketball in my hands. And most of all, the weight I no longer carried in my chest. It wasn't vindication I sought, it was truth. And truth, once exposed, has no need to shout. The story had ended, not with a climactic confrontation or some dramatic apology, but with a quiet understanding. Kimberly would never apologize. She would never see herself clearly enough to admit her part. She was lost in a labyrinth of self-justification, and I had no desire to follow her in. I didn't need her to admit guilt to feel right. Her downfall wasn't my triumph, it was merely the natural consequence of a structure built on lies. And while she spun webs of blame and martyrdom, I stepped out of the entanglement and walked away. The scars are there, of course. I would be lying if I said I walked away untouched. But they're not open wounds anymore. They're healed, sealed over with lessons I'll never forget. I've learned that love isn't just about what you give, it's also about what the other person respects. I've learned that boundaries are not cruelty, that calmness is not absence, and that loyalty is not a weakness. I've learned that those who truly value you won't need you to break just to make them feel whole. I've learned that emotional distance is not the same as emotional absence, and that introspection, quietude, and structure are not flaws to be fixed, they are traits to be understood. Every now and then, I pass a place we once visited or stumble across a song she used to hum absent-mindedly, and for a moment, the past flickers like a photograph exposed to light. But it doesn't sting anymore. It's just a memory, a chapter of a book that has already been closed. I don't linger, I don't reread it, I don't try to rewrite the ending. I simply turn the page and keep moving forward. In a strange way, I'm grateful. Not for the betrayal, not for the pain, but for the clarity it forced me to find. If she hadn't broken what we had, I might never have realized how fragile it truly was, how much of myself I had bent and molded to make her comfortable, how blind I had been to the slow erosion of my own peace. Her exit, cruel as it was, made space for something better. Not another person, not yet, but a fuller version of myself. One who doesn't shrink to avoid conflict. One who doesn't confuse stillness with stagnation. One who knows his worth, even in silence. And so, I end this story not with bitterness, but with certainty. I didn't lose something valuable, I uncovered something precious, myself. And no one gets to define my calm center ever again. Not with accusations, not with betrayal, not with shame.